Slay Volume 4. 20 years after his Sifu was murdered, Yumi walked down the street where he lived, which was now covered in snow. His hair, which was now fully grey, was the only way to tell he was older, as everything else was still strong and full of vigour. "Sir, could you spare some change?" asked a boy, dressed in rags, who looked no older than 8 years old. "I know these streets pretty well, which is why I can tell when something's out of place. Plus, you look like you walked out of an Oliver Twist novel," said Yumi, with an expression that advertised the fact he wasn't impressed. "I don't understand," responded the boy. "I know you're not human," said Yumi. The boy smiled and transformed him to June, who still looked 25 years old and was dressed in a business suit. "One moment you're looking like my baby brother, and then you're looking like my grandpa, who is in tremendous shape," said June in his usual jovial demeanor as he walked around Yumi, who still seemed unimpressed. "Your father is dead," informed Yumi. "You're like 60 years old. Of course he's dead," responded June. The ability to open one's chi gate means one's body has still a great deal of vitality, well into the hundreds, highlighted Yumi. "Are you bragging or making a point?" asked June. "Your father would still be alive if he wasn't murdered by your boss. I heard Dolmen had that pleasure," said June. "They both were on the same team," points out Yumi. "I agree. It's a shame I didn't get the honor of seeing the life leave his body," laughed June. "You really are lost. So what? You're going to spend the last 25 years of your life as a slave to a demon?" 25 years? Brother, I'm going to live a lot longer than that. I learned a lot after 50 years of reconstituting myself. One being you can achieve a lot with the heart and blood of someone who can open their chi gate, shared June. "I wish there was another way," said Yumi as he went into his chi gate state. "You got sentimental in your old age," said June. "You also got forgetful," said June, suddenly appearing behind Yumi with his sword thrust from behind through Yumi's heart. "With me you can't trust your eyes," said June, pulling out his sword as Yumi dropped to the ground, dead. 15 minutes later, June enters the presidential suite of a 5-star hotel owned by his clan. He places a demon skull on the bed in the master bedroom. He then crushes Yomi's heart over it and gently releases some energy over it, which in turn resurrected Zhuang in his demon form. "I'm guessing this means Jiang's student has been taken care of," said Zhuang after transforming into his human form. "Yes, but we still have other problems to contend with," responds June. "I expect nothing less," said Zhuang. 2 weeks later, MJ consoles his mother at his father's funeral. 2 hours after that, at the wake that took place at his family home, he approaches George, a tall, athletically built Englishman in a black suit, with Moose, an average-height boy no older than 16, also dressed in a black suit and wearing black shades, standing beside him. "How are you holding up?" asks MJ. "I should be asking you that. He was your father," responded George. "As a slayer, it's easy to view death as a simple transition than it would for someone like you," highlights MJ. "Is that why you're here to talk to me about work?" responds George. "I'm here to talk about the one who killed my father," said MJ. "Iwa already told me it was June," said George. "Of course she did," sighed MJ. "I'm already on the case," said George. "Don't involve the others. This guy is dangerous," warned MJ. "Why? We're just as capable as he is," said Junaid, with Jihad and Shaz standing behind him. Don't confuse power with competency, responded MJ. I know the thought of avenging your Sifu sounds glamorous and even obligatory, but leave it to the professionals. The last thing I want to do is prematurely attend another funeral, said George, then walking away with Moods behind him, leaving Junaid and Jihad looking on enraged. 20 years earlier, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach dressed in a white gi with his black belt tied around his waist, and a Thai boxing coach who dressed in black and red Thai gear watched 13-year-old George taking part in MMA sparring. Is that little George? Asked the BJJ coach. These days, he's not so little, highlights the Thai coach. What is he, 16? Try 13. 13? What are they feeding him? Said BJJ coach, observing the fact that George was under 6 foot, just under 6 foot, and weighed 180 pounds of lean muscle. 3 years of training every day with unwavering determination will do that to you, said the Thai coach. You reckon he's been training for a bully? Asked the BJJ coach. If he was, he kicked that bully's behind a long time ago. After training, George goes home only to be greeted by yelling. Can't I go 10 seconds without you nagging? Yells George's stepdad, who was clearly drunk. He was a big man that was kept muscle-bound by his labouring job. What's going on here? Asked George calmly. Nothing, hon, we are just talking, said his mother, failing to reassure him. Shut up! Yells George's stepdad as he backhand slapped George's mother. George, now enraged, leaps into the air without hesitation, where he kicks his stepdad into the stove as he lands in front of his mum. Oh, so you think you're a man? Okay, let's see what you've got, tough guy, yells George's stepdad. George says nothing, but his eyes said, bring it. His stepdad throws a punch, but before anyone could blink, George simultaneously blocks it and delivers a punch of his own, which launches his dad back onto the stove behind him. The stepdad attempts to hit George with a back fist, which George ducks under and then returns fire with a chop to the throat, followed up with 10 lightning-fast punches to the sternum, followed with a right hook to the face, which again threw the drunk into the stove. This time the stepdad grabs a pan and swings it at George, who stops attacking arm with a famous Wing Chun block, after which he quickly proceeds to break his stepfather's attacking arm, causing him to yell as he drops pan and runs out of the kitchen. Mum, we need to get out of here, said George to his beyond frightened mother. And go where? Replies Mum. Coach has a spare room we can use for the night. After that we can figure things out, said George, desperately trying to convince his mother to leave. You're not going anywhere, said his stepdad as he burst into the kitchen pointing a gun at them, before firing. George, who shielded his mum, went into a blue energy-based cheese state for the first time, and in an instant dashes at stepdad with a punch that literally causes him to explode into pieces. George comes out of state, covered in his stepdad's blood, unsure of what just happened, and runs out in a panic, bumping into Yumi. It's okay, son. Everything's going to be okay, said Yumi as he embraced the distraught teen. Iwa then organized a cleanup crew, and Leia spoke with the police when they eventually arrived. The next morning, Yumi got a knock at his door. Hey, said Yumi as he answered the door to find it was George. Hey, responded George. Come in, said Yumi, then leading the teenager to his living room. Can I get you something to drink? Offered Yumi. I'm fine, responded George, who was still standing. How did you find me? I got your address from a lady last night, informed George. Iwa, sighed Yumi. What? Nothing. What happened to me last night? You opened your chi gate. What does that even mean? You opened an energy source within you that essentially makes you superhuman. How is that possible? Honestly, I'm not sure, as it's an ability I thought could only be tapped into through pushing past your physical limits. I train hard every day. Training hard and pushing past your limits are two different things. What happened right before you opened your chi gate? He shot at us, responded George. Yumi briefly went into deep thought. Trauma. Trauma? It seems when your energy is ripe, any emotion derived from a fight or flight situation can also open a chi gate, hypothesizes Yumi. People get shot at all the time in this world. Not everyone has the ability to tap into chi gate energy. Come with me. Yumi then leads George to the dojo at the back of his house. What are you doing? Asked George, noticing Yumi was locking them in a building with the windows too small to climb through. The key is the only way out of this building without your chi gate abilities, said Yumi, putting the key in his pockets. What, you want us to spar? Not spar, fight. I'm not going to fight you. Yumi responded by punching George in the face, the force of which threw him to the ground. Before George could fully embrace his disbelief, Yumi came at him with a kick from a mid-air spin, which Yumi just about managed to get out of the way of and onto his feet. Immediately after which, he avoided a side kick by spinning around Yumi, who immediately engaged him with 4 close-quarter attacks in form of a shoulder barge, elbow, back fist, and a straight punch, which sent the teenager flying. At this point, Yumi picked 2 short sticks and began to relentlessly attack George, who dodged 2 attacks before being swept to the ground, and being forced to block a follow-up strike with his forearms, while simultaneously opening his chi gate. Yumi jumps back and opens his chi gate. You can do it too? Said George, still in his chi state. 2 hours later, Yumi and George sat at the entrance of the dojo drinking water. This is crazy, said George. Trust me, we haven't got to crazy yet, responded Yumi. What if your theory was wrong? You could have killed me, highlights George. Your stepdad was bigger than me, and according to your mom, you whooped him good. So, I know as long as I kept my power at human level, you would be fine. Plus, unless I rip out your heart or cut off your head, you were guaranteed to enter your chi state before death. That was guaranteed as you already had your initial chi gate opening. Will you teach me to control this? Sure. After 5 years of intense training. I never saw you as the rom-com type, said George's date as they walked to her front door after a classic date night, which consisted of dinner and a movie. Truth be told, as far as your assessment is concerned, I am a cliché. But when you're with me, it's all about you, said George with a smile as they stood in front of her front door. Close enough, said his date, then giving him a gentle kiss before going into her home. George then takes a walk to a park about 10 minutes away that was usually empty that time of night. I think we're alone now, said George, addressing the individual who had been following him all evening. You're an observant one, said a pale and skinny man dressed in a white suit. Force of habit, plus your outfit doesn't help, responded George. Ouch, I like this outfit, said the stranger. What do you want? You. More specifically, your heart and your blood, said the stranger, then transforming into a 20-foot demon. Sorry, but I'm kind of using them at the moment, said George as he opened his chi gate. An hour later, Yumi gets a knock at his door. Hey, greeted Yumi as he opened his door to find it was George. Hey, responded George as he let himself in. How was your date? Asked Yumi. It went better than I expected. Then I was attacked by a demon, responded George. Are you okay? I'm fine. The thing wasn't even qualified to be a sparring partner, responded George. It got me thinking, though, continued George. Thinking about what? I know MJ has stopped at least 20 demons from attacking me this month alone. How could you possibly know that? You literally emphasize the art of effective observation in every training session. Even if MJ is flawless at stealth, the demons he took out aren't. Your ability to open your chi gate has made you a target, but I still want you to have a normal life, confessed Yumi. The demons that come after me literally can't survive a single blow from me. They might as well be irritating flies or mosquitoes, which is why I think we should find others like me and teach them how to use their power, said George. Are you crazy? Not every demon that will come after you will be light work. Anyone we show how to open the gate will be targeted along with everyone who is attached to them, highlights Yumi. George quietly approaches Yumi and says, because I didn't know what was in me, I killed a man. After which, by your own admission, I became a target to demons I wasn't prepared to face, without your training and guidance. 4 years later, just a week after graduating from university, George heads off to a job interview in a suit with the country's top investment bank. As he walks into the building, he gets a text message from Yumi, which says, "Good luck." 15 minutes later, he is led into a conference room. "What is going on?" says George as he stood before Iwa, Leia, and Nii, who were all corporately dressed and seated behind a conference table. "Hello, George," greeted Iwa. "Don't hello me. I'm meant to be interviewing for a graduate entry position at this investment bank," said George. "George, I would like you to come and work for me," said Iwa. "Work for you? Doing what?" "Tracking down and neutralizing dangerous entities outside the jurisdiction of demon slayers. You are welcome to say no and take the graduate entry position here, which I have guaranteed to be yours." "Yumi won't go for this," highlights George. "Let me worry about Yumi," said Iwa. 6 months later, George jumps out of a plane in his chi state and lands in a countryside area of rural Afghanistan and walks to the edge of a nearby cliff where he sees half a dozen jeeps parked outside a cage entrance. "I see the agent's transport," said George, touching his earpiece. "Good. They aren't our guys, so stay hidden unless the situation says otherwise. MJ should be in your area very soon," communicates Iwa from a command center. "Yes, miss," said George, making his way into the cave. As George gets 50 meters into the cave, he notices blood and human parts on the floor and on the walls. "Are you seeing this?" said George, touching on the fact that his entire suit was essentially one big camera sending video footage of what he was seeing back to Iwa at her command center. "Yes, it looks like the team were blown up," answered Iwa. George then notices a little boy, around 6 years old, backing him. "Hey there," said George gently. The boy turns around, revealing his eyes engulfed in grey energy, like he had opened his chi gate, only his state was completely feral. And before George could fully take in what he was seeing, the boy hit George with a dropkick that sent him flying. "MJ, where are you?" asked Iwa. 20 minutes later, MJ approached the cave only to find George in his chi state, sitting with the boy, who was also in a chi state, eating a sandwich. "You won't happen to have any food on you?" asked George. 48 hours later, at Iwa's command center, she, Leia, and MJ watched the boy destroy a wave of androids in the center's training area alongside George. "Is this the demon that the locals were talking about?" asked Leia. "Apparently so. Only he is very much human," said Iwa. "George says the boy said his name is Moose," said MJ. "I was told he doesn't talk," highlighted Leia. "Knowing George, he probably got the name from a grunt," responded MJ. Well, the boy seems to be attached to George, which is a good thing, because according to our tests, if he ever turned on us, everything we have may not be enough to stop him, informed Iwa. He's only 6. How is that possible? Asked Leia. Violence and survival is the first language he learned, due to an incredibly harsh environment, which led to his chi gates being opened very early in life. So much so, it never seems to turn off. Learning to be civil will be a second language. That right now can only be done through George, explained Iwa. It's like getting a wild bear to function in society without mauling anyone, added MJ. Exactly, agreed Iwa. Present day, 48 hours after Yumi's funeral. George and Muse, late at night, in full battle gear, observe Zhuang and Jun enter a warehouse while hidden 10 feet away in a forest-like area. Guys, said a voice from behind. Shaz? What are you doing here? Wait, where are the twins? Reacted George. Meanwhile, on entering the warehouse, Jun and Zhuang see the twins standing about 10 feet in front of them in their battle gear in full chi states. Oh look, we have unexpected visitors, said Jun sarcastically. Before anyone could make a move, both George and Moose came crashing through the roof in full chi state, with Moose landing in between the enemies and his allies, while George landed behind the twins. This could be a problem, said Zhuang. Not necessarily, said Jun, as his eyes became engulfed in flames. Moose in turn backfists Zhuang out of the way and punches a hole in Jun's chest. Zhuang tries retaliating with a series of devastating attacks, but to no avail. It was like a normal man trying to hit a monkey that was using its agility to the fullest. At one point, Moose grabs Zhuang by the neck and begins to strangle him. Moose, it's me, said the fading voice of his victim. Moose stops in horror as he finds himself surrounded by armed agents while strangling George. 8 hours later, Iwa walks into the medical facility of her command center, where she finds George seated beside Moose, who was awake and sitting up on a hospital bed. How are you guys doing? Asked Iwa. How could you have let this happen? Said George as he got up and approached his boss. There was a slight miscalculation on my part, Iwa tried to explain. Slight miscalculation? You gave the twins gear and sent them into a very dangerous situation they were unprepared for. Jihad is dead, and Musa has an extra load of trauma dumped on him, yelled George. I gave the twins and Shaz gear because they were going to get involved anyway. Gear meant extra protection, plus I knew Shaz would keep you in the loop. Musa's last assessment indicated he was immune to mental manipulation. I didn't take into account that the progress he has made integrating with society has changed that, Iwa explained with a raised voice. George responded by retaking his seat to exercise self-control over the rage within him. I'm sorry things got monumentally messed up, but you need to know I gave careful consideration to every decision I made, continued Iwa with a softer tone. Meanwhile, in the garden of one of Zhuang's city-based properties, Dorman wakes up in the body of Jihad. Welcome back, Dorman, greeted Zhuang, with Jun by his side as Dorman got to his feet. I feel different. Good, but different, said Dorman as his eyes became engulfed with black energy. Your existence has been displaced, which means to access any abilities other than what this body offers requires you to take on your true form, which will give any full slayer legal right over you, explained Zhuang. The good news is, physically you possess more power than you ever have, added Jun. Shaz, who is in complete stealth mode, watched from the property's roof. We have a serious problem, whispers Shaz as he touched his earpiece. Report in for a full debrief, responded Iwa as she walked away from Muzi's hospital room. 15 years earlier. Guys, I would like you to meet Shaz, said Iwa, bringing in a short, chubby 12-year-old with a big smile on his face. Hello, Shaz. I'm Cynthia. This here is Yumi and George, greeted Cynthia in her mom demeanor. Hello, said Shaz with a wave. How about I get you settled in, said Cynthia as she led him to his bedroom. Are you sure you can open his cheek gate? Asked George. Just trust me. It's my job to know who is who, and your job to train them, said Iwa, clearly unimpressed with George's attitude. By now, not judging a book by its cover should be second nature to you, pointed out Yumi. 1 week later, Yumi, George, and Shaz, all dressed in geese, were in a circle on their knees. Okay, for the next few sessions, we will continue to work on your form, informed Yumi. Then, without warning, 2 boys, no older than 15 years old, walked in. Can I help you? Asked George. It's Jihad and Junaid, said Shaz, who was clearly starstruck. You know these boys? Asked Yumi. They are huge online, said Shaz, then bringing out his phone. They go around town challenging and beating the best fighters. They are so good, they let their opponents pick the rules of engagement, said Shaz, showing his mentors a video. Why don't you just take part in official tournaments? Asked George, now engaging the boys. Tournaments don't pay when you're 14. The internet does. When we're 18, we will turn pro fully, backed by all our sponsors, bragged Junaid. Fair enough, said George, getting to his feet. You both can come at me. Don't worry. I'll go easy on you, said George, now standing in front of the teenagers. We're not interested in fighting you, said Junaid. Why? Are you scared? Responded George. You're a nobody. We're here to fight him, said Jihad, pointing at Yumi. Rude, responded George. He's an urban legend in the martial arts circle. Some even claim there's something supernatural about the way he fights, said Junaid. Yumi smiles and quietly switches places with George. Are you ready? Asked Yumi. Jihad then throws his phone to Shaz, who promptly starts filming with it. He and his brothers then assume their fighting stances. Yumi then opens his chi gate, which causes the boys to jump back in astonishment. Now, you didn't think you were the only ones with this ability, said Yumi with a smile on his face. 3 years later. I can't believe you'll be a university graduate soon, said Yumi as he walked with George by a lake. Time really does fly, responded George. So what's your assessment of the students you're mentoring? Asked Yumi. Well, the twins are always pushing themselves, which isn't surprising, seeing as them almost killing themselves in a so-called sparring match with each other is how they learned how to open their chi gates in the first place. I guess I'm happy they can defend themselves against supernatural forces and show restraint when in combat as mere mortals, shared George. But, added Yumi, sensing a little dissatisfaction in his protege's voice, I thought after spending time with us they would want to do more than become rich and famous. George, they are teenagers. Being self-centered at that age is kind of normal. I suspect when they do become world champions, they will quickly realize they can and should be doing more. To be fair, until MJ became a slayer, I was no different, said Yumi. You wanted to be rich and famous? Asked George. No, but I did want to just live for me and my family. Superpowers or not, man is meant to serve those around him, said Yumi. Wise words as always, commented George. What about Shaz? Well, he's grown physically and in skill level, and can keep up with the twins when they're not in their chi state. But he's yet to open his chi state, shared George. And you're frustrated. More baffled than anything else. Iwa said his energy was ripe 3 years ago, said George. I suspect his talent and laid-back attitude is what's in the way. Plus, we can't risk putting him in a life and death situation until he actually opens his cheek gate. There's no rush. Sooner or later it will happen, responds Yumi. That Friday, around 4 p.m., Shaz got his berry smoothie and made his way to the nearby park. You don't mind if I sit here? Asked Shaz, as a beautiful girl around his age was already sitting on a park bench that could easily accommodate 3 people. No, not at all, said the girl. Shaz sat at the end of the bench, leaving a gap big enough for a third person to sit between them. 5 minutes later, aren't you going to hit on me? Asked the girl. Sorry, responded Shaz, now a little confused. I assumed you wanting to sit beside me is because you thought I was cute, continued the girl. Don't get me wrong, I think you're beautiful, but I sit here every week just to chill and get away from a full house. Plus, quite frankly, I don't have game like that, responded Shaz. Louisa, introduced the girl, offering a handshake. Shaz, reciprocated the young teenager by shaking her hand. Louisa, would you like to get something to eat? Asked Shaz. Right now? Sure. The 2 teenagers then got up and began walking, with Shaz taking the lead. I thought you said you didn't have game, said Louisa. I don't. This is me striking while the iron is hot, responded Shaz. The teenagers then proceeded to have an evening of Chinese food, ice skating, and a movie soaked in conversation with a lot of laughter. The movie was all right, said Louisa. Any movie that can make me rethink one of my major life strategies gets much higher than an all right, responded Shaz. What life strategy might that be? Inquired Louisa. A lot of horror movie fatalities, in my opinion, could be avoided if the victim just ignored the noise and stayed in bed, which clearly wouldn't work in a case of that movie, explained Shaz. I guess it kind of makes sense, responded Louisa. So what, at night, by yourself, you hear a noise and you react by wandering in the dark saying, Who's there? Playfully challenges Shaz. Basically, yes, responds Louisa, causing them both to laugh. I really had fun, said Shaz, as he stopped in front of her door. So did I, said Louisa, as they both looked at each other. A moment of silence then followed, which was broken by Louisa gently kissing Shaz on the lips. You know where I live, so don't be a stranger, said Louisa, then going into her house. Shaz, whose mood was now beyond good, started making his way home. The teenager hadn't taken more than 10 steps before being confronted by a young man who looked like he was a tall 19-year-old rugby player and 5 of his friends with a similar build. Where do you think you're going? Said the young man as his friends began to surround Shaz. Hey man, I'm not looking for any trouble, said Shaz, who was clearly uncomfortable. Is that so? Then let me suggest you stay away from my sister, said the young man, then shoving Shaz before heading home with his friends. A week later, Shaz was walking home. Hey, said Louisa, approaching him. Hey, how are things? Responded Shaz. I'm good. Honestly, I thought I would have heard back from you by now, said Louisa. Look, last week was great, but some guy who said he was your brother. Tony? Interrupted Louisa. I didn't catch his name, but he did tell me to stay away from you, informed Shaz. I'm so sorry. He's harmless, explained Louisa. Maybe so, but I'm not really looking for any drama right now, said Shaz, then walking off. The next day, Shaz steps out of a store with a smoothie he had just purchased, when out of nowhere, Tony slaps it out of his hand. Seriously? Reacts Shaz. My sister came home crying because of you, said Tony, poking Shaz's chest. You told me to leave your sister alone, so I left her alone, responded Shaz, trying not to lose his cool. I said leave her alone, not make her cry, insisted Tony. I don't have time for this, said Shaz, now attempting to walk away. I'm not done talking to you, said Tony, grabbing Shaz by the shoulder. Shaz, giving in to his frustration, grabbed the hand Tony put on him and broke it, an act that forced him to swiftly and brutally knock out or down Tony's 5 friends, who attacked after Tony's arm was broken. Again, Shaz attempted to walk away, when one of his previously downed opponents came at him with a knife. Shaz, seeing the attack right before it was too late, instinctually reacted by going into his chi state for the first time, which flung his attacker several feet. Present day. Other threats need to be tended to, and we can't risk Moose tagging along. Your visor should ensure immunity to June's illusions. One of you is enough to take on June. At least 2 of you is needed to take down Zwang, and it will take at least all 3 of you to take down Dorman. Shaz will take on June, Junaid, you will take on Zwang, and George, you will take on Dorman. Remember, the end game is to have all 3 of you against Dorman that has lost his comrades. Only then do we stand a real chance, said Iwa from her command center. We've got this, said George as he stood in the middle of Shaz and Junaid at the center's huge training room, the designated meeting point. Moments later, Dorman, June, and Zwang were meeting in the garden where Shaz last located them, when before them a portal opened from which Iwa walked out. Hello, boys, greeted Iwa. Dorman reacted by trying to punch a hole in her, only to find she was a hologram. I see you're still as smart as ever, taunted Iwa. What do you want? Asked June. To offer you the chance to grab hold of 3 Chi Gate users. All you have to do is walk through that portal, responded Iwa. An obvious trap, said Zwang. That depends, said Iwa. On what? Asked Dorman. On whether you can beat them or not, responded Iwa with a huge grin on her face as her hologram disappears. Dorman and his henchmen walk through the portal into Iwa's command center's training room, only to come face to face with George, Shaz, and Junaid in their chi state. After an intense stare down, both parties leap into action. Shaz, who was taking on June, was able to more than hold his own, but even though they were equal in skill, June was far more experienced, which allowed him to start getting the upper hand. Junaid, who was taking on Zwang, was no stranger when it came to fighting superior opponents. This, combined with his aggressive and competitive nature, allowed him to have moments, but it wasn't enough to stop the superior fighter in Zwang to overall have his way with the young warrior. George, who fighting Dorman, was martial arts personified in terms of the delivery of his attacks that did land on the demon, but Dorman's raw power began to prove too much for him. Shaz began to adapt to June's fighting style and land more hits. At one point, he was able to take June's sword and decapitate him in a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, after which he immediately cut off the arm Zwang was using to hold Junaid by the neck. As Zwang screamed out in pain as he reverted back into his demon form, and now livid Junaid began to relentlessly land hits after hits on the now one-armed demon, until he finally flung Zwang at Shaz, who in turn sliced the demon in 2. At this point, they could see Dorman laugh at George after receiving a punch from him, before sending him flying with an uppercut. Shaz and Junaid attacked Dorman, who was now forced to defend himself properly. At one point, Shaz slashed Dorman across the chest, which hurt the demon. As Dorman jumped back in pain, Shaz smiled and handed June's sword to Junaid, while George stood by their side, ready to re-engage. Once again, Dorman found himself under attack, this time George and Shaz committing to heavy attacks, causing the demon to block or get hurt. But whether demon blocked or got hit, every time he interacted with the attacks from George and Shaz, Junaid slashed him with June's sword, until Dorman had been slashed so many times he had to revert back to his demon form. At this point, MJ came crashing through the ceiling with eyes and hands engulfed in white energy, landing in between his comrades and the demon. I'm not afraid of you, yelled out Dorman. Yes, you are, quietly responded MJ, then decapitating Dorman in an instant. 100 years later, June once again, fully reconstituted, stumbled his way out of some rubble in the middle of what was now a wasteland. You don't look too good, said a voice from behind. June turns around, only to find himself face to face with Barnabas and Eyes. Hello there! Hope you enjoyed JOMAJ Comics comic book. Subscribe to JOMAJ Comics YouTube page to be updated when more graphic novels are available online by simply going to www.jomajstudios.com. Become a patron as your support is much appreciated and goes towards helping disadvantaged young people all over the world. Also send your feedback, good or bad, they are precious to me. Take care. Bye.